Hey everybody, what's up? It's Commander Clyde with a little different video. I have done patch notes before on this channel. Um, and today we're talking Smite 5.3 with the new god. As you can clearly see, Achilles. God in air quotes because he's technically not. He's a demigod. Close enough. They have plenty of those in the game anyway, so. Yeah, and there's his weird face. There's just something wrong with him. I'm gonna ignore that. But so let's dive in. So first of all, passive gift of the gods. Achilles adapts to the tide of battle. Achilles can choose to wear armor, granting him bonus health and protections, or forego it, granting him bonus movement, speed, and physical power. Armor bonus. Achilles gains an additional, good spelling, 35 plus 10 health per level, and 5 plus 1 protection per level. On armor bonus, Achilles gains an additional movement speed, 3% plus 0.25% per level, and 10 plus 2 physical power per level. There's the passive. Something that they did not note here is that you can only choose your stance while you're in the fountain. Because, I mean, this is a passive, so you can't just, there's not an ability that toggles it or anything. You have to be in the fountain, and you have to select it manually. So, you want to think wisely about that. Shield of Achilles. Achilles punches forward with the edge of his shield, inflicting massive damage and stunning enemy targets hit by the impact. The force of his punch continues to radiate past his initial target area, excuse me, dealing 80% damage to targets farther away. So it's a cone that decreases in power the further away you are from the target. The range for the stun, I think is about 20 units, something like that. So damage is 100, scaling to 340, going up to 340 plus 90% of your physical power. And the stun also increases by 0.1 seconds from 1.1 to 1.5. 15-second cooldown, so that's a good high cooldown. I think that's a decent amount. So this is really good for a quick stun in the middle of a fight. If you're trying to get more DPS or cancel something your opponent may be casting, etc. So you can use it for clear, but I mean, if it's losing damage on the archer, you won't. On archers, you'll only deal 80% of that. So keep that in mind. Radiant Glory. Achilles is blessed by the gods, giving him bonus physical power protections and crowd control reduction for 6 seconds. While this blessing is active, Achilles will heal himself upon successfully damaging enemies with abilities. Heal goes from 23 to 35 plus 10%. Max heals per ability goes 2, 2, 3, 3, and then 4. So that's the amount of heals you can get based on, obviously it's also based on the target that you hit. I believe it's based on number of targets. So if you only hit one target, you only get one heal. Pretty simple. Which makes this a fairly weak sustain ability if you're in the middle of like a 1v1 fight, because several warriors do it better than he does. He does get bonus power and protections and bonus CCR, so that's something to think about, which can be very effective if you use it properly. In combat dodge, excuse me, Achilles dodges his enemy's attacks before striking them in swift response. If Achilles successfully hits an enemy god with his strike, Achilles can use this ability once more before it goes on cooldown. Damage goes from 65 to 225 plus 50%. Awesome. This will probably be one of your main clear abilities, but you have to hit the enemy god. So remember that when you're taking minion aggro. Then Fatal Strike. I don't know how to feel about this ability, but here we go. Achilles winds up a large attack and dashes forward. That's a key to remember. We'll come back to that. While dashing, Achilles will pass through minions, stop, and hit the first enemy god he encounters, dealing damage to all he hits. If the god is below 30% health, they are executed. If Achilles successfully executes a god with this ability, he can use it again up to 5 times. And here's how they put in the lore. As Achilles successfully executes his enemies, he becomes more reckless in combat and leaves his heel exposed. Achilles will become more susceptible to damage, stacking up to 5 times. I don't know how that stacks. They don't explain. Damage is 180 to 540 plus 100%, so it's about the damage of like a tier ultimate. Execute threshold 30%. Damage taken increases 10% per stack. So he can take up to 50% more damage after executing a target. Now, like we said, he winds up a large attack and dashes forward. Seeing it in action, his ult is actually pretty slow, and you can clearly see the startup and dash out of the way of it if you've got an ability that does that. It's not that hard to avoid, so it is balanced a little around that. Yeah, they didn't explain, and Aegis of course would block it too. It would block the execute. So that's a strategy. But let's think about this for duels. Yield of Achilles, I don't know. I mean, that's good for 1v1 fights because there's a stun. Stuns are always good. You can use it to try to set up your ultimate, which can be useful just for the damage, not even the execute, and then you follow it up with combat, dodge, blah blah blah. All of that is good. Um, I don't. This isn't great clear because there's plenty of warriors that'll have the edge against him in clear because of it dealing 80% damage to farther away targets. There's not a way you can at least get the full damage. There's not a way to get full damage on the archers unless you start casting on them, which is always an option. Obviously, you're going to start at level 3. So, being said, if you hit this twice, it does more damage. So you probably want 2 points in combat dodge. Personally, that's what I would do because it's better for clear. It's important to think about. This is a good ability if you're on like a wave, but I don't see that being useful in a 1v1 fight because most warriors with sustain a lot better than this. Bellona's Scourge is better, Hercules' thing is better. Gets that damage, that healing returned at the end. Tears is better. Chalks is obviously ridiculous, but he has the highest single sustain of any ability in the game. So I wouldn't expect any other warrior to be able to match that, but I mean, I like the bonus stats too. Those are very good, but I just don't see that being that useful in duel in a 1v1 scenario. Combat dodge I see being very useful because it's a good mobility tool. And it's a good way to inflict some quick damage. Being able to dodge enemy attacks is also very important. I don't know how it interacts in the middle of the dodge. It's pretty quick, so and I don't know if you avoid damage while it's casting or if you get invincibility frames. I don't know. If you do, then that's pretty damn good, I'll say. And then Fatal Strike, I don't really like that there's an execute on it. That seems really dumb to me, but I mean that's a good way to counteract that. In a team fight, that doesn't help you in a 1v1. You're just dead. But again, you can avoid it pretty well. Several of the top picks in Duel have some type of mobility tool, a jump, a dash, etc. to avoid this. So it's always something to think about. It is difficult to hit. So that's the main thing to think about when it comes to that. The passive, I think, is really good for a Duel. The health per level, additional health per level is kind of silly. It's pretty high. Wait, no, it's 235. So is that just flat he gets? Okay. Never mind. It's not that good. But extra health for nothing is good. This is okay. 25 isn't much though. Unarmored is probably going to be your better tool in Duel because you get the extra movement and bonus physical power, which are going to help you with controlling buff camps a lot more. And I would probably go for that. I mean, sure, the early you're getting 6 protection extra, but which if you have Warrior's Blessing, you probably aren't taking like any damage hardly, but I think you'd rather have a better clear and better buff control. Okay. There's a recolor. Skins, I don't care. Whatever. I mean, bleh. Bugs. Fixed an issue where God selection icons would take a long time to load in. Fixed an issue where AMC's passive ability was described as a pet. What the heck? It's a deployable. You guys are weird. Issue where Poseidon's Whirlpool had an incorrect tide number. Morgan icon would be revealed on the mini-map even when stealth. Discordia's passive ability, buff FX, could become invisible. Good Colin would be healed for an incorrect amount from med. That's really weird. Dodgy's adventure where a summoner could spawn out of reach of most player attacks. Great. Skin booster stuff, whatever. Shut up. Console players now have access to all VGS commands. Perfect. Oh, thank God. They finally fixed that. Jeez, man. I was hoping this because Attacker's Blessing is great. It's entirely broken for Duel. Like, seriously. You don't know if you guys understand that. It makes me want to do meme strats of starting with upgraded Sunder and Attacker's Blessing and trying to go ham on people at level 3. It's just always fun. So that'll be interesting once that's back. Oracles are easier to kill. Well, the base health decrease, scaling health per level increased by 10. Yeah. Decreased base power of Centaur, Manticore, Chimera, and Satyr from 24 to 18. Great. I told you. New passive. On successful hit of an ability, you gain 1 stack. At 4 stacks, your next ability that damages an enemy god will deal bonus damage equal to 40% of your magical power and will heal yourself and allies within 20 units for 40% of your magical power and consume the 4 stacks. It doesn't say on a hit of what. If it's on a minion wave, then you get it every wave, which is kind of stupid. Of course, it doesn't proc the effect unless you damage an enemy god, but this seems really broken still. If you have do weird edge cases where do hell, hell, that's interesting. Do that and build Asclepius and just like, bruh, it's like let's go. It's fun. And I have seen weird edge cases elsewhere on other streams. People getting this on New Wa. You just ult on command, ult on cooldown. Ta-da. Easy. Typhon's Fang is getting nerfed. Yes. Decreased magical lifesteal from 15 to 10%. Decreased passive healing bonus from 50 to 40%. It's going to be a little nerf to Anubis and Hades, who are quite annoying to deal with currently, particularly in Duel. So that's good. They get less benefit now. So anti-heal's more effective. You gotta think about their build now. Decrease power from 75 to 65 from stacks. Oh wait, no, that is base, I'm sorry. Decrease power per stack from 0.6 to 0.5. Now it provides 20 less power. This item was not affecting Duel that much. I don't care about that. That won't really change anything. Look at the dead. Decrease mana used percent of mana used to form shield by 10%. 25 to 15. Actually, they didn't decrease it by 10%. I'm sorry. That's an incorrect thing to say. 10% would be 2.5% if they decreased it by 10%. So that's actually a 50% reduction. 40, something like that. Yeah. Malice decreased physical power from 50 to 40. Increased critical strike chance from 20% to 25%. Every critical strike against an enemy god gives 1 stack. At 3 stacks, your next ability, this is new, damages an enemy god. That damages an enemy god will consume the stacks and deal bonus damage over time to the first god hit. For 120% of your physical power, damage is dealt in 3 ticks over 2 seconds. So this actually opens up the gods that can use it, because previously it was you get a crit, does bonus damage over time. Now it's on an ability. Do you get the stacks? 3 ticks over 2 seconds. Okay. Rage is getting nerfed. Increased cost, 24 to 2500. Decreased physical power from 30 to 20. Increased critical strike chance per stack from 1 to 2%. Rage now provides 40% total critical strike chance when fully evolved, up from 35. Doesn't impact Duel, nobody's building crit. This item may be on certain gods. Would be good because they changed how it works with it doing the tick damage based on hitting that, damaging an enemy god with an ability. So I kind of like how that functions more. Soul Eater buffed. No one will still use it though because this item sucks. Decreased stacks needed from 100 to 75. It just takes too long. Period. And you don't want it. Increased bonus physical power on evolve from 10 to 20. Now provides 60 physical power when fully evolved. I mean, it's just not useful. Yeah, lifesteal on abilities, woohoo, but like there's so few guys that can use it well, and it just doesn't provide that much stats to really make you want to buy it. I mean, 60 power is good because that's on the higher end of power that most physical items have. And it's still got cooldown reduction, so maybe now it's better, but 75 stacks is still a lot. Because it would take you math. It would take you 12 and a half minion waves to stack it. well, on minions anyway. You're probably stacking it from other sources too, like buff cams. But that's a lot of minions and waves to kill before you get that stacked. I wonder if they fix the bug where it. Oh right, so God kills counts as 5 stacks. By the way, I don't. I wonder if they fix the bug where your own death counted as 5 stacks. Which is a really weird buff. I don't even know if anybody knows it's there. When I was playing around with the item when they first made it, I died to the bull demon on purpose to check, and it did in fact give me a stack. Give me 5 stacks. So, haha. So Warrior's Blessing is getting buffed. I don't know what they're talking about. That's an inaccurate statement. Because there's a lot of gods that use this item really well. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. Increase bonus protections when evolved from 10 to 15. Decrease the stacks gained from gods from 5 to 3. I forget what the stacks are for, but yeah, it is a buff technically because you get more protections, although it's not gonna, give you that spike in stacks. So, oh, it's for god kills, okay. So you get 3 per god kill now, so it takes longer to stack it, but more protection. There's a few gods that are building this in duel most of the time on like standard warriors and guardians, like good type of gods that would actually use it. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that is the passive. It gives you a stack for anything that dies near you. Minions count as 1 stack. Gods count as 5. Yeah. So I mean, yes, it does make sense. It gives you 5 stacks if you die, but that's still weird. Anyway, generally, you're only seeing warriors and guardians build this in duel, except for, well, most of the time they aren't. I mean, build it in general. And Nemesis will build this in duel, some cases, but that's one god. That doesn't really. Most of the time in duel, you're gonna want Mage's Blessing or a better power item because your clear will suffer too much. There's a couple gods in duel that are warriors or guardians that I think do use this item well, but those cases are pretty limited, so this item doesn't really have that much of an effect on duel. Like for gods other than Nemesis that use it well in duel, Sobek happens to be one because of his passive. It works really well with the Warrior's Blessing passives. Um, I mean, if you think about it, Hercules uses this item really well because of his passive giving him bonus power for taking damage. So he already has something that gives him power innate in his kit, so he doesn't necessarily need a power item to start with. Okay, Hunter's Blessing. Let's see. They change how it provides basic attack damage. Not sure what they mean, but let's see. This fixes a few issues where this item interacted with various abilities and systems in the game. This item now better interacts with hit chain progression, abilities that scale with basic attack damage, and a few edge case scenarios. In some case, this is a buff for characters, anyone with a slower hit chain, and in others, this is a nerf for characters, i.e. Morgan's passive, which is Omen. Okay, so it wasn't working. So this would be a buff to uh, a few of the warriors who can use this item, like Osiris, then, because they've changed how it interacts with chain progression, so it'll help those gods that have a scaling basic attack chain. Okay. Arachne buff, reduce cooldown on webs from 18 to 16 seconds. You can now have 3 webs at once instead of the previous 2. Good buff. I don't know how much that does for her. I mean, it makes it easier for you to kill jungle camps at the beginning. Uh, Things like that. You get better vision on the map with your webs because you can have it in more places. So it's a pretty big buff. It's a very conquest centric buff because that's where she gets the most benefit out of this. Okay, Cerberus has apparently been struggling with team impact. So Ghastly Breath increased damage per tick from 15 up to 55 to 20 up to 60. How many times does this hit? Like 10. I'm not totally positive. This is like a 50 or 60 total damage increase per rank over the time of the channel of the ability because they've increased it by 5 at all ranks. Soul Expulsion increased range from 40 to 50 units. Stygian Torment, I think that's how you say that. Decreased the post-fire delay from 1.4 to zero point 0.1 seconds. Cerberus is now crippled for 1.2 seconds after firing this ability, so he can't jump immediately or do anything. He also is knock up back and knock up immune for 1.2 seconds. It also auto activates all 3 of his heads on his passive. So immediately after casting it, if you don't have the stacks, you can do that and then use Paralyzing Spit and get the instant stun and the extra damage. Really good. Um, this will help his effectiveness in Duel, which is not that great in certain matchups. He does very well against melee physicals because of how his kit functions. Against everything else, it's pretty rough. But, I mean, this is a buff in Duel. It makes his ult more effective, harder to avoid. You get the extra ghastly breath damage, so those are all positives. Alright, let's check Freya, who's been performing a little too well considering the itemization. Changed magical lifesteal from 15% to 5% plus 0.5% per level, which with the scaling will end at 15%. Ta-da. So it scales up so she doesn't get the greatest benefit of it until level 20. Decreased damage on irradiate from 40 up to 100 to 35 up to 95. Decreased magical power scaling from 25 to 20% per shot. So nerfs, some critical nerfs on Freya has lowered her uh, damage quite a bit from irradiate, so you can't just get instantly blown up with that, and she doesn't get a gigantic lifesteal bonus basically from the bonus from the damage on irradiate. Those two things were so strong together that it was making her one of the most broken gods in the game. Glad to see that it's nerfed, so now you can use the early and mid game to get her as far behind as possible, and hopefully her late game never causes you an issue. I don't know about that. Her late game's probably still going to be strong. So do be careful. And Capri, abduct to decrease cooldown from 15 to 14 seconds. Solar Flare, decrease cooldown from 18 to 16 seconds. Yay! He's still the worst god in Duel. Do not play him. That's all. I have nothing else to say. Alright. Scylla, quick learner, her passive, she gets a power stack from maxing out her abilities. Increased power per stack from 20 to 25. So now instead of 80, she's getting 100 total power from that. And Sikkim increased magical power scaling from 75 to 80%. So top end damage is going to be a little bit stronger now. Which is fine. I mean, this helps her be more useful without her ultimate, which is always good. Otherwise, she's pretty much, without that ultimate, she's kind of meh. So this helps her quite a bit. Good for duel because you get more power from your stacks and stuff, which helps your itemization a little bit. You don't have to wait as long because you know you're going to get the extra power from the passive. You don't have to be so worried about your itemization. Okay, Circuit, increased cooldown on Deathbane from 10 to 13 seconds. That is a big cooldown nerf. And I like it because Deathbane had too short of a cooldown. It was too hard to kill her, to lock her down with her mobility. And decreased physical protection reduction from 15 to 10%. I hate. Oh no. OBS, you didn't do that, did you? I'm gonna pretend I'm still recording. My stream may have disconnected though. Okay, I'm still recording. Disconnected from the stream though. That's fine. You guys on YouTube are still getting this, so blah blah blah. I'm not gonna go through all this text because of what they did was they buffed this god because they made a really nice skin for him, and it was too far to buff him because he was already a really good god, and you should never do that just on the basis of let's sell a skin because you're just unbalancing the game for something that's kind of pointless. If people like the skin, they're gonna play the god. You don't need to buff him too. And those of you on stream, we should be back. Sorry about that. Okay. Uh, Saying he's still a difficult god to execute well. I mean, yes and no. It's all about his axe stun. That's it. If you can hit that thing and do your stance switch properly, then easy. It's not that hard. So yeah, they overbuffed him quite a bit. Now they're decreasing the scaling on both Bladed Arrow and Hail of Arrows. So Bladed Arrow 80 to 70%, Hail of Arrows 120 to 110. Good. God is still broken though. And then good old Vamana getting some love. And he's right, he has been getting shut down. He gets shut down a lot though anyway. I don't think it was just season 5. It was been like that for a long time. Still got the healing potential, a lot of anti-heal though, limits his usefulness. They're just worried about his survivability while he's in that form. He's a big, giant target, and which makes him rather vulnerable. So to that end, they've increased his protections gain from 5 to 25 to 15 to 35. So 10%, 10 more protections at all ranks. And added a targeter to indicate the hit area for his basic attacks, while Colossal Fury is active. Great. So if you can't, so if you somehow have difficulty seeing that, There it is. I mean, well, we were all like, what the heck are they doing when they put a targeter on Fenrir's ultimate? That one did seem kind of goofy though. This one is fine because it is deceiving, honestly, when his basic attacks will hit. This doesn't change how bullied he can be, how easily bullied he can be by certain gods. Cucullin is one of those that can bully him. Osiris bullies him a lot. I mean, Osiris is a counter matchup to him, so that's how it is. So, like, that, Bologna and Erlang can kind of mess with him a little bit, but they're weird. So, yeah. I mean, like, a lot of the auto-attacking warriors that are really strong auto-attack warriors, Vamana's technically not. He's kind of a hybrid between that. I mean, you build auto attack items mainly for Colossal Fury, not for his regular basic attacks. For that, you want, for his abilities, you want the damage, obviously. He's a lot more ability oriented, although you do want, obviously, the itemization to help his ultimate basic attacks. Um, this helps him in team fights, but his lane performance is still going to be basically the same. All right. And in Duel, we didn't talk about Duel perspective. Yes, in Duel, this is the protections. That's a big deal. That also affects. That should affect the amount of power he has too, because his passive he gets power based on his physical protection. So that'll make him do more damage in his ult too. He'll be able to take more, etc. It makes him a little better in Duel. Makes him really good at using his ult on objectives too, because he can tank more damage from them. So yeah. So he's a little better in duel, a little better in team fights. And yeah, I think that's it for the patch notes, everybody. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed that. Check out the live stream, twitch.tv/Commander Clyde. That's one word. And I'll see you guys later for some more Smite. Have a good one.